She suggested to Xian to clean up the pollution source, use special containment bags, or burn the bodies. But Xian said no need. He can see it. It's a rose growing out of the human body. The color is the same as blood. In Xian's mind, uncontrolled flashed one girl's figure after another in Xian's mind. That feeling makes people subconsciously want to possess them. Some girls look like Jingchen. Some look like their mothers. But they have no impact on Xian at all. He just feels a bit strange. Internally, he still denies that he clearly didn't like it that much. He observed his emotional changes like an outsider. Then he reached out and grabbed that rose. With a click, the rose that had lost its influence had no room to struggle. It was easily plucked by Xian. Those girls scattered instantly. Looking at the pollution source in his brother's hand, 17 was so tempted that she almost cried. But Xian didn't give it to her. He covered the microphone. This rose is too frivolous. Little sister, don't eat it, okay? Xian looked at his sister with some apologetic eyes. But 17 still reached out and took a small flower. After the rose was plucked, the man holding his wife slumped to the ground. The pollution source has been resolved. For Xian, who has built-in immunity, such pollution sources are easily cleaned up. Single unit did a great job. The most important thing now is to prevent the spread of secondary pollution by the group. Compared to the cheerful team on Bing Han's side, the situation on Cui Tai's side is completely different. Only to see her veins bulging. It is estimated that the gecko is misbehaving again. Xian looked at the chaotic market. It's a bit troublesome to stop them from spreading. Before he rushed over, who knows how many people had already escaped. Relying on his and his sister's strength, how could they stop the spread of these people? However, the city patrol guards have already set up blockades at major intersections. If they are collectively impacted by the polluted, they will be shot at. So, for now, they can only do their best to prevent the spread. She suggested that Xian use any means necessary to stop the groups that have already been contaminated for the second time, as long as it can disrupt their movement routes. After that, when the situation is under control, the support team can enter and focus on treating them. Xian understood Bing Han's meaning. He pulled out a girl's love flagpole to use as a stick. A girl who wanted to rush into the store swung the stick at a person who was crazily smashing the glass. A loud bang. The blow caused the girl to have a direct fracture in both legs. Tilted and fell to the ground. The crowd hiding in the shop shivered when they saw the scene. Xian told them not to approach the girl until the alarm was lifted. Okay. Then he turned around and ran in another direction. He heard the crisp sound from the channel. Bing Han asked nervously, "Single unit, what method are you using?" Xian said he doesn't have power to influence others, so he uses a simpler method. To prevent them from running around and getting shot, he can only break their legs first. It took a few minutes. The pollution in the mall was almost solved the second time. He applied force more accurately. It should be easy to recover afterwards. Just might be sore for a few days. Although he broke a lot of couples' legs, the thought of saving their lives made his mood unexpectedly good. Look at his appearance. 17 on the side couldn't help but make fun. Isn't it because brother has never had a girlfriend? Xian quickly rushed out of the mall after dealing with those matters. His job isn't finished yet. His job is to break the legs of all the couples. At this moment, he saw a chubby couple embracing each other, preparing to kiss. This action made Xian believe that they had been contaminated. He directly aimed the dog-headed cudgel at their legs. The fat man was suddenly shocked. He hurriedly questioned loudly what Xian wanted to do. The stick finally stopped. "Weren't you contaminated?" The fat man immediately cursed. "What contamination? It's the end of the world, and my last kiss with my girlfriend is bothering you." Xian was at a loss for words for a moment. He looked embarrassed. "Just kiss. Why aren't your hands behaving?" He then turned around and left. Only the fat man was left behind, muttering to himself. Watching Xian swiftly climbing up the building, the fat man was also startled. Is this Spider-Man? But why is Spider-Man using a stick? Spider-Man from Shaolin Temple? Xian, who quickly climbed onto the roof, plans to search for the target better from a high vantage point. But when he saw the scene in front of him, it instantly disrupted his thoughts. The crowd suddenly underwent a change. They simultaneously stopped their frenzied movements. This momentarily left Xian unsure whether to strike or not. They quickly reported the situation on the scene to Bing Han. It seemed like they suddenly calmed down. Unusually calm. Some started walking towards different high-rise buildings. Not good. At this moment, Xian saw someone standing on the edge of the rooftop. Unable to care about so much. Just as he was about to pull away to stop him. Suddenly, the pupils constricted. The scene in front of him immediately stunned him on the spot. Those couples are holding each other's hands, silently sharing a smile, and speaking their final confessions to each other. At the moment of the red moon, Xian could only watch helplessly as they fell straight down from the rooftop. Even after hitting the ground, they were still holding hands. The secondary contaminated group has begun to mutate. Is this a double suicide? Spiritual pollution is sweeping through the city like a virus. Innocent citizens are affected and are jumping off rooftops one after another. Bing Han suspects that the group attempting to jump off the building are the same ones who were previously contaminated by the secondary pollution. The worst thing still happened. This is a special pollution event. The group affected by the secondary pollution has begun to mutate. From the initial passion and enthusiasm, it has now evolved into a love-and-die situation. This is a subconscious choice of self-destructive tendencies after emotions have twisted to the extreme. According to the existing data analysis, people who have been exposed to secondary pollution will develop mutations in about 30 minutes. Couples who are together will have the idea of going to death together to prove their love. Even if the partner is not around, there will be an impulse to jump off the building in order to prove their love. How could it be so serious? Xian's voice clearly expressed some confusion and a hint of anger. The stick in hand continued to break the legs of those couples, restricting their movements to prevent them from doing foolish things. Bing Han quickly drew a conclusion through analysis. The large-scale chaos was caused by human activities. It is highly likely that the power users outside the city intentionally created this chaos to facilitate their escape with the painting. Upon hearing that this was caused by human activities, the first person Xian thought of was Ran Qin. No matter what their intentions are, the fact of pollution has already been created. Now, all they can do is to make the greatest effort to clean up before more people die. At this moment, 3 people have walked to the edge of the tall building. Due to the distance being too far, Xian cannot save 3 people at the same time. They can only temporarily separate. 17 knows that his older brother cares a lot, so he has been behaving exceptionally obedient. He hasn't even disturbed Xian. Then they split up and acted separately. Xian rushed towards a young man, while 17 also did the same at the middle-aged couple at the same time. Seeing that he couldn't stop the other party from jumping off the building, Xian grabbed a flower pot from the side. He directly hit him on the head. The flower pot shattered upon impact. The teenager immediately fainted. It's better than him jumping off the building and losing his life. 17 then happily waved at Xian. Brother, am I good or not? This way, they won't be able to jump down. Haha. Only to see 17 winding that middle-aged couple together like a twist. Sister, don't make trouble. Xian cannot bear to look at this scene. After 17 playfully made a funny face at Xian, he reluctantly untied them while feeling gloomy. It's magical that after they were untied, the elderly couple seemed completely unharmed. Xian became curious. How did his sister manage to do it? He only breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that they were unharmed. But when he looked up, he froze on the spot. A chill emanated from within his heart. All the rooftops in the distance were crowded with figures. What happened? Bing Han also saw a certain scene from the camera in front of Xian's chest. I see many people on the surrounding rooftops. Xian felt extremely small and powerless at this moment. Just watching them walk to the edge of the rooftop and jump down one after another. But he was already too late to get there. Hearing Xian's choked words, Bing Han also seemed a bit flustered. But she still comforted Xian, telling him not to blame himself within his power. Save if possible. If not, it's because it's beyond his capability. He understood the reason. After all, the former dean had mentioned it before. But when he witnessed countless people jumping to their deaths from the rooftop, a strange emotion arose in his heart. For the first time in a long time, Xian displayed such intense emotions. It was a profound sense of helplessness, a panic that so many people were about to lose their lives. Just then, the roar of propellers echoed from above. Xian subconsciously looked up and saw a helicopter hovering in the night sky. The helicopter's door opened, and a figure dropped down. It's a girl wearing a Western-style dress. Her perfect face instantly caught the attention of everyone present, even those who wanted to jump off the building. At this moment, everyone stopped. They stared obsessively at the girl. In everyone's eyes and hearts, there was only this girl. She held a parasol in a graceful manner, suspended in midair. The crowd below has forgotten the thought of jumping off the building because, at the same time, everyone has fallen in love with this girl. At this moment, they only want to get her. Xian's gaze was also captured by her. He didn't behave as wildly as the others. He just stared blankly at the girl. So good-looking. 17th's voice came from behind. I saw her eyes shining, revealing that rarely seen innocent smile. This situation rarely occurs. Xian asked back, Do you like her too? 17 nodded vigorously. It's just that her way of showing affection is a little unusual. She really wanted to grab that girl, tear open her clothes, and then mend them back together, wearing them on herself. Xian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was just clothing. He asked Bing Han about the identity of that girl. It's the doll. Great. She must have already dealt with the pollution source issue in Main City and rushed over to support. Bing Han was suddenly filled with joy. It was her. Xian suddenly remembered that Gecko had mentioned this person before. At the same time of joy, Bing Han suddenly realized something. His expression became serious. Single unit. Please pay attention. Don't stare at the doll, especially her eyes. Otherwise, your spirit will be influenced by her, causing some changes that may even be irreversible. Stare at the doll for more than a minute. You will never be able to forget her appearance. Stare at the doll for more than 3 minutes. Or if you see her eyes, you will completely fall in love with her. Stare at the doll for more than 5 minutes, or spend over an hour with her within a range of 10 meters without any obstacles. You will develop a strong impulse to destroy her. By then, you will feel that the doll does not belong to this world. This world is too dirty and unworthy of her. She should not stay here. Never look directly at this girl, especially her eyes. Extremely pure the doll. Just floating in midair doing nothing. Let countless people affected by spiritual pollution. Stop the idea of jumping off buildings for love. Everyone's attention was drawn to her, because looking directly at the doll would create a strong sense of admiration. The doll only stayed for a few seconds. Then she floated lightly forward, holding an umbrella. The crowd on the rooftop seemed to suddenly wake up. They couldn't accept the doll's departure. Just a moment ago, the couple who were tightly holding hands to die for love together. Suddenly, they all let go of each other's hands. They quickly rushed towards their respective staircases, racing each other to go downstairs. The sudden change left Xian temporarily puzzled. Bing Han then started to explain to Xian. The doll had already saved them. The moment these people saw the doll, whether their attention or affection was distorted, they must not want to die now. They just want to be closer to the doll. The crisis in the crowded shopping mall has been temporarily resolved now. but Tianshui Plaza, Qing Street Bridge and 3 places in the southern part of the city are experiencing pollution outbreaks. Bing Han asked Xian and the doll to go support as soon as possible. Xian immediately set off after hearing this. He leaped down from the rooftop and caught up with the doll floating in the air. You go to Tianshui Square. I will hurry to Qingjie Bridge, which is closer. After all, you can fly. The doll, floating in the air, slowly turned its head to glance at Xian. In its originally lifeless large eyes, a glimmer of life seemed to appear. Okay. After softly responding to Xian, it gently floated towards Tianshui Square's location. This scene instantly shocked Bing Han. The doll, who never speaks, actually spoke to Xian? Qingjie Bridge is the only passage between the south and east of the city. It happens to be located right in the middle of 2 special pollution outbreak points. 10 minutes ago, the security department and the city patrol army have already arrived at Qingjie Bridge to control and seal off the pollution source in a certain area to prevent further spread. However, they just received a report that more and more pollution-infected groups are flooding over, nearing the limit. Their orders are to avoid shooting if possible, but they will resort to it if the situation cannot be contained. Listening to Bing Han's report, Xian watched as countless people gathered on Qingjie Bridge. Seeing their slow movements, just like the people who committed suicide before, Xian couldn't help but feel a slight heaviness in his heart. It's already starting to mutate. Are you tired? He glanced back at his younger sister and asked. He saw 17 looking up with a small face and replied, Tired or not, aren't we still helping you with the work? Bing Han thought Xian was speaking to her, which made her pleasantly surprised. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Single Unit. We are nothing compared to you. You are the ones who are working the hardest. Xian couldn't say that she was not asking Bing Han. She could only respond with a simple, okay, to the 2 possible answers. He then leaped towards the bridge. He pondered on how to solve the problem. Although there were many people on the bridge, their movements were rather slow. There was still a chance to save some of them. The problem is that he has to come up with a solution. He needs a method that can make this group of people lose their ability to act at the same time. At the moment of landing, he suddenly felt something was off. Everything around him began to change. He felt like what was in front of him was unreal. A comic world created with drawn lines. His gaze swept away. The crowd on the bridge seemed to treat this place as the real world. Everyone is cheering and jumping for joy. Someone is accompanied by several different opposite sexes. As happy as a 200-pound man running on the beach. Someone is holding a woman outlined by lines. Embracing on the stairs painted. Under the stairs is a lake painted in heavy ink strokes. They jumped into the lake, splashing ink flowers. Then they climbed out satisfactorily and continued to climb the stairs. What is this? Xian turned his head left and right, only to find that his younger sister was no longer by his side. His scalp began to tingle. How did he end up in such a strange world? Single Unit. What happened? Xian feels something is off. Bing Han anxiously shouts to him. Xian said he suddenly entered a strange place. He asked Bing Han if he could see it. You can see it through the camera in front of Xian's chest. Everything is normal. Young man, you haven't been contaminated. How did you end up in my world? A bald uncle in a tank top and shorts. He walked over to him with a thermos. I don't know if they are friends or foes. Xian explained to Bing Han that he encountered a bald-headed uncle. A bald-headed uncle? Could it be that a drunkard has arrived? Upon receiving Bing Han's reminder, Xian clarified his identity. I am the Single Unit from the 2nd satellite town. The uncle then realized that Xian is in the same line of work as him. He just came from the 4th satellite town. The situation here has been brought under control. These people just need to run in this direction. We'll enter into his power range. Once they go in, they won't be able to run out. Also, don't think about dying. Speaking of this, he was curious about Xian, who is a power user. He also ran in. Xian was stunned at the words. Shouldn't you have told me this? However, the uncle was also puzzled. If he knew, he wouldn't have asked Xian. He reached out and held Xian's hand. At the moment of holding hands, everything around them changed. The bizarre comic world quickly faded away. After returning to the real world, the bald uncle was gone. In his place was a young girl. She indicated to Xian the level of power currently being used. Clearly, only ordinary people should enter. Yet there was still such power. Xian looked incredulously at the people around him. They were still immersed in the comic world, with happy smiles on their faces. All right, young man. Go busy yourself somewhere else. I'm fine here. Xian then realized the girl he was shaking hands with was holding a thermos flask filled with white wine. The alcoholic finished speaking and then turned around, digging his nose. Continued to exert power on the people around. Xian, who stayed in place, was obviously stunned. Until a sharp pain shot up his leg. Only then did he realize that his little sister was biting his leg. He lifted 17 up with one hand and asked her what she was doing. It turned out that he had just seen Xian splitting up. 17 was trying to help him sober up. What a mess. Xian said she was a bit late to bite into it. Binghan then introduced the alcoholic to Xian. She is a schoolgirl who is 18 years old this year. And at this moment, Chui Tai, who was sitting on the side, listened to Gecko's report. His expression seemed a bit nervous. The alcoholic has a kind of unexplainable self-awareness disorder. In her consciousness, she believes she is a 60-year-old man. So whenever the alcoholic displays power and pulls people into her illusions, she will appear in the image of an old man. The doll, which is not beautiful like a real person. Or the uncle with a ponytail. Xian finds it incredible. It seems like there might be something wrong with these colleagues of mine. Chui Tai handed the information he had just collected to Binghan. Currently, in the various large-scale pollution incidents, Mr. Single Unit has resolved one. The alcoholic, who arrived in time, can also control one place. The doll has also resolved the Tian Shui Square incident. She is now rushing to the southern part of the city. However, she just received a message. There is still one place that has not been brought under control. That is the southern wall where the gecko is located. Tens of thousands of the severe polluter are attacking the wall. The situation is very tense. Since the Red Moon incident, people have only been able to survive under the protection of the wall. But now, tens of thousands of people are attacking the wall. Miss Chen reported that after the oil painting was stolen, the second satellite town entered a state of alert. About 20 minutes later, a large number of people attacked the southern wall of the city. Some people even took advantage of the chaos to escape from the wall. Upon hearing that the southern wall was on the verge of collapse, and that there were still large crowds gathering there, Xian instinctively became nervous. The southern wall is where teacher Little Lu and the orphanage are located. Binghan also cannot provide specific information, because whether spiritual pollution has erupted there, it is not yet known. This makes Xian somewhat puzzled. It was his first encounter with Binghan, the situation where no information was given at all. He found a motorcycle in the ruins. He wanted 17 to rest for a while. After all, they experienced such a long period of chaos. Xian was worried that her sister would be tired. At short distances, leaning on her sister was faster, but for longer distances, riding a bicycle was still quicker. It also saved energy. The motorcycle roared as the throttle was twisted to the limit. Darkness and fear enveloped the city. The motorcycle quickly traveled to the southern area of the city. Xian, however, found the surroundings unusually quiet. He looked up and saw her at the foot of the tall wall at a glance. A dense crowd of countless people. They silently gathered at the foot of the wall. No shouting or tearing. The scene was as silent as death. Tears welled up in everyone's eyes. Xian could sense that they all seemed to be unconsciously moving toward the wall. He drove the motorcycle swiftly through the gaps in the crowd. Brother, come here. Quickly climb up. The gecko standing on the wall saw Xion's familiar figure. It's a gecko. Sister, let's go up. Xion threw down the motorcycle and leaped toward the wall. With the help of his sister's power, he bounced a few steps in a row and climbed up the wall. Xion skillfully showed his identification to the defense soldiers. The Special Operations Team member, Single Unit, came over to support. Gecko walked through the soldiers to greet him. Brother, you finally arrived. Just now, it looked like you. The motorcycle was driven like a stunt performer. He told Xion about what he had encountered. The situation is very strange now. He has seen others cry. And he has also cried to others. Sweating profusely, he pointed towards the wall below. But do you have it or not? Have you ever seen tens of thousands of people cry towards you? Countless faces gathered under the wall, just standing there dumbly weeping silently. What is going on exactly? Xion looked at the scene below. This kind of picture makes people feel an unreal sense of panic. Gecko is also not sure. When he came over to support, he thought it was to deal with some tricky pollution source. But who knew, he came over and saw such a scene. They just stood there motionless. Gecko was almost moved to tears by the way they looked at him. And just now it has been checked. No pollution source was found in the vicinity. Due to the discrepancy in numbers with the people under the wall, Bing Han suggests not to act rashly. Currently, there are no signs of attack from the people under the south wall. However, this possibility cannot be ruled out. Gecko says he doesn't know anything. It's not a solution to just stay here like this. He is asking if it is possible to use a large number of tranquilizer darts to stun them. Chui Tai directly refused without any hesitation. Irritably, he suggested that Gecko might as well just stun himself. He ignored the quarrel between him and Gecko. Bing Han looked a bit nervous. Single Unit. What can you see? Xion, however, shook his head, indicating that there was nothing. Faced with such a large number of them, he asked Bing Han if he could please bring the doll, the little girl, over. Perhaps only she can solve it. Bing Han did not receive the message that the doll could come to help. Moreover, she personally does not recommend the doll to come over. The doll has a strong, uncontrollable influence. If she comes to the scene, the unknown influences colliding with these people may lead to unpredictable changes. Therefore, it is crucial to investigate the logic chain among them at this time. Xion seems to have made a decision at this moment. He saw him turn and walk slowly towards the wall. The gecko asked in confusion what he was going to do. Xion did not turn his head, indicating that he couldn't just stand and watch. He wanted to go down and investigate. There are so many people down there. It's very dangerous. Watching Xion walk away, the gecko looked worried. Even for a power user, delving into an unknown contaminated group is extremely risky. But Xion, who has a strong sense of duty, said it was okay. After all, he is receiving this salary. He then grabbed the rope on the wall and slowly slid down. This made the gecko truly admire him from the bottom of his heart. Brother, you will achieve great things. As he descended the wall, he smiled at his worried gecko. He believed that he would definitely get promoted faster than the gecko in the future. At the moment when Xion slid down, 17 followed closely behind. Brother, you are going to act foolish again. Xion just smiled at her without offering much explanation. 17 was also helpless against her brother. Can only mutter to him that today is exhausting. Make Xion carry her. And also have to give her toys. Okay. Then he and his sister fell down. He looked at these crying people. They were like statues, looking up at the wall, shedding silent tears. It was quiet at the scene. Only their faint breaths could be heard. You could feel they were living beings, but there were no extra movements. Xion told Bing Han about his idea. He wanted to touch one of them and observe her reaction. His hand reached out in front of a girl and gently shook it in front of her. However, just at that moment, the girl who had been staring at the wall suddenly looked over, She just gazed at Exion so intently without moving a muscle. What exactly happened that made the usually composed Exion shed tears? Exion came to the city to investigate the specific reasons behind the wall where thousands shed tears. He gently waved his hand in front of a girl's eyes. The originally unconscious girl suddenly reacted. She stared motionless at Exion. Bing Han on the channel passed through. The camera captured this strange scene. Exion told Bing Han about the plan for what to do next. He stretched his leg and tried to trip the girl to see her reaction. Thump. The moment the girl fell, there was suddenly a stir among the crowd. People scattered in all directions. Almost at the same time, Exion looked over. From this, it can be seen that the test results are still very ideal. They still exhibit a certain reaction, but there seems to be no tendency to attack. The gecko standing on the wall looked puzzled. Is this to investigate or to test to what extent before the woman will draw him? Gecko's antics always make Cui Tai argue with him. In fact, Bing Han can't guess Exion's thoughts either. She quietly asked, "Mr. Single Unit, what are you doing?" Exion moved the girl aside and stood in her place, indicating that the girl had no other reaction besides looking at him. He wanted to try to integrate into their group first. Bing Han still had questions when he saw them. He expressed his thoughts. Since neither our detection methods nor observations have revealed anything, isn't it logical to integrate into them to sense what is happening? Bing Han was momentarily at a loss for words upon hearing this. We are unable to find the pollution source through detection. It is possible that this pollution source is hidden too well. Or it could be a new form of pollution. If this pollution source is targeted only at ordinary people, power users may not be able to detect it. So even if it merges with them, it's useless. Exion nodded in agreement with Bing Han's analysis. In other words, only ordinary people can sense it. So I should give it a try. He has always felt that he is just an ordinary person. Exion stood quietly in the middle of the crowd, looking up at the wall like the others, trying to feel that mysterious power. If he could discover how it was affecting things, he would be able to find the source. That is the key point. The gecko on the wall was completely baffled by Exion's investigative approach. It was something he had never seen before. He asked Cui Tai if Exion had undergone any new training. Cui Tai just finished reviewing Exion's information. He found out that Exion is indeed undergoing training. But so far, it has been less than a week. In addition to studying different pollution sources. In addition to the rewards and subsidies between levels. Most of the others have not yet started. Compensation subsidy? In view of Gecko's limited knowledge of Exion, perhaps this is already enough. Because it's too quiet around, let's clear away all distractions. Exion's feeling almost fell asleep. Something is wrong. I'm just a normal, healthy, ordinary person. If others can be affected, then he must be able to feel it too. Suddenly realized something. He looked down at his sister beside him. Maybe it's because of you influencing me by my side. You leave me for a while first. 17 looked as if he was looking at a fool. I'm leaving. Aren't you afraid of being eaten by someone? Exion thought for a moment. Then he instructed 17 not to go too far. If things don't look right, you must come over quickly to help him. Then you have to compensate me. 17 gestured as he spoke. She wanted a supersized toy that could cry and make noise. I will consider it seriously. But you have to be careful. Otherwise, no one will buy you toys. 17 was thus entangled by Exion. She happily took 3 steps back. Quietly she crawled towards the distance. Soon, she disappeared into the crowd of weeping people. Exion took a deep breath softly. She tried to empty herself and quietly felt everything around herself. He's like a drop of water, slowly merging into this weeping ocean, becoming one of them. This time seems to have resonance. There is a huge and intense sense of sadness. It is shrouding the wasteland under this wall. When he began to sink into this sadness, suddenly he heard a voice. It was the crying of a child. That crying seemed to have a certain infectious power, causing endless sadness to surge in people's hearts instantly. Xian's heart seemed to have opened a gap. Those images came flooding out all at once. Countless times, he found himself awake, the cold scalpel cutting into his body. Also countless times, he sat all day in a pitch-black room with no light. There were adults observing him. He feared loneliness and darkness, hoping for someone to appear, but he also knew that whenever someone did appear, it meant they would harm him. Covered all day with such fears and sadness, he could only shrink into the corner of the wall, quietly shedding tears. It seemed like in an instant, Xian experienced countless tortures. A sudden sensation of pain came over Xian, causing him to open his eyes and see his sister biting his thigh. 17 was smiling somewhat sinisterly. "Brother, you were crying?" "No." Xian quickly wiped away the tears from the corner of his eyes with his hand. After adjusting his emotions, he reported to Bing Han that traces of pollution had been found. "Get ready." This made Bing Han suddenly nervous. She asked what type Xian is. "It's the sound of crying. A little boy's crying." Xian detailed out everything she discovered in the self-package. The voice is extremely faint and hard to detect. But as long as his crying is heard, it will trigger a very sad emotion, as well as hallucinations. These people are probably all affected like this. Xian estimates. The pollution source should be a little boy hiding among the crowd. Bing Han was about to report to the investigation team as soon as she finished listening. However, Xian stopped her. "Don't let the investigation team in yet. They may not be able to resist." Because the members of the investigation team were all wearing thick protective suits. Their hearing may be affected, and they may not be able to locate the pollution source. But if they take off their helmets, they will be directly contaminated by the wailing and become a crier. Such a clever pollution source. It should have been carefully designed by someone. This is too similar to the one in the previous mine cave complex that emitted a fear-inducing pollution source. But this time, the pollution source is even more powerful. It is also harder to detect. Thinking of this, Xian suddenly had a thought in his mind. Could it be that the previous fear-inducing pollution source was actually an experiment? This man once again refreshes others' perceptions of him. He relies solely on immersing himself to feel. It can identify pollution sources that even instruments cannot detect. That is an extremely faint crying sound, like a barely perceptible thread, spreading a kind of emotion around, plunging people into endless sadness. What is he doing? The gecko standing on the wall apparently cannot figure out what Xian is up to. Chui Tai then told him. According to the exclusive information officer of Single Unit, Single Unit has already found traces of pollution. Currently, he is trying to track down pollution source. Is he a humanoid self-walking mental detector? Gecko was stunned into silence. Chui Tai made him be on guard immediately. Help Xian be alert to the dangers around. He opened the box behind him. A precision sniper rifle about 1 meter long appeared before his eyes. Gecko, though always joking, wasted no time in action, quickly assembling with a series of crackle sounds. He quickly aimed the barrel tightly around Xian. It seemed like he figured something out. Curiously, he asked Chui Tai a question. Is the information officer of Single Unit pretty? Chui Tai was a bit speechless about the chatter of Gecko. She is the flower of our information analysis team. Do you think she is pretty or not? After obtaining the information he wanted, Gecko then focused his attention on Xian. To ensure a safer journey for Xian, this time he even brought a scope. Following a faint sensing, Xian paused in front of a person. The sound of crying was that of a young boy, but strangely, the person in front of Xian was not a young boy. Xian carefully examined this man, and found that he looked somewhat like Ran Qin. He didn't speak, nor did he move. He just watched the wall silently. But Xian could clearly feel that the crying was coming from within him. I have identified the pollution source of this incident, and can clean it up at any time. Bing Han's analysis of the target data through the camera in front of Xian's chest. Mr. Single Unit. It is recommended to temporarily retreat and remain vigilant. I have not yet received Bing Han's analysis results. At this moment, Ran Qin suddenly made a clicking sound, as if numerous gears were rotating. A crack started to appear on his skull. In an instant, it seemed as intricate as precision machinery. Suddenly burst open, like a mechanical device. There was no bloody scene. A technologically advanced ball was glowing brightly. The sphere embedded in the cranial cavity suddenly bounced out, hovering in midair. The faint crying sound was coming from inside the sphere. Xian was obviously surprised. He had never imagined pollution source to be like this. It was not a little boy, just something playing crying sounds. And the crying sounds were recorded. Bing Han also became nervous immediately. Her voice was very urgent. Be careful, Mr. Single Unit. That is a product of Technology Church. The sphere hovering in midair suddenly started to drip. A sound of electronic machinery emanated. Abnormal target detected approaching. Experiment advancing to the second phase early. Just as the words fell, the shell of the sphere began to crack open. Silver tentacles extended out from the opening. A strong and terrifying blue light. The electric current spread rapidly around. The electric current swept through every person under the wall in an instant, including Xian. Everyone was simultaneously engulfed inside. Meanwhile, 30 miles outside Qingyang City, in an abandoned city, the sky hung with a huge red moon, shrouding the ruins in a blood-red hue. On top of an abandoned skyscraper, 3 people gathered, sitting on crates and playing cards. One of them, dressed in camouflage, was Ran Qin. Another had a rather large head, and the third wore a red suit. Ran Qin's expression seemed challenging. Suddenly, with a forceful wave of his hand, he slammed the cards down 2 twos. The boy with the big head glanced at his handful of cards, then his face showed a fierce expression. With a look of defiance, he played the bomb. Seeing Ran Qin's face looking a bit embarrassed, the big-headed boy drew another card and put it down with a smile. A straight from 4 to ace. I only have 1 card left. Looks like I have a winning hand. A man in a red suit suddenly drew out 4 cards. Bomb! Then he played the remaining cards in his hand one by one. This caused Ran Qin to burst into laughter on the side. No. Let's play another round. I will be the landlord this time. The big-headed boy is very unconvinced. Ran Qin stood up and refused directly. It turned out that this way of playing cards was a method of testing for their knights to ensure that their mental logic was sound. The man in the red suit smirked, using the card-playing process to observe each other's emotional fluctuations. This testing method is indeed interesting. Ran Qin held a display device in his hand, with a blue light flashing non-stop. He walked to the edge of the building and looked towards Qingyang City. Seeing the flickering blue electric current, it seemed that it had already begun. The men in red suits also crowded around to gaze in the direction of Qingyang City. It started a little earlier than predicted. Perhaps they've been discovered. After all, there should be quite a few power users in Qingyang City. Although it started earlier than expected, Ran Qin doesn't seem to think it will have any impact. The number of people gathered now should be enough for the experiment. A huge disaster is about to befall Qingyang City. They are progressing smoothly towards their expected outcome. This ruthless group of outlaws will do anything to successfully retrieve that painting. They have launched Technology Church's latest products in Qingyang City to cut off their retreat. This is a little boy named Crybaby, a massive spiritual pollution device. The big-headed boy is a bit excited. This can be used to record the experimental data after the detonation of the new product. It can also be considered completing the task. They have 3 tasks at hand. Now 2 of them are considered completed. The only regret for the big-headed boy is that the escaped laboratory was destroyed by someone's carelessness. As he looked at his companion's blaming glances, Red Suit did not get angry. He always had a smile on his face. Don't blame me for it. All my dolls are used to assist the leader's tasks. At a critical moment, Ranqing persuaded the two people to stop, telling them not to force it. The painting is the main thing. Moreover, 3 tasks have been completed out of 2. It's already good to be able to walk away in one piece. Qingyang City is not as simple as we thought. Greedy pigs that go after food are always the first to be served on the dining table. Looking in the direction of Qingyang City, he ordered to pack up and retreat immediately after recording the explosion data. And at this moment, below the southern wall of the city, that sphere is still emitting electric currents. Fortunately, Xion's reaction and speed are relatively fast. Those electric currents did not reach his body. Still haven't recovered from the thrilling experience just now. A scene I have never seen before appeared before my eyes again. Anyone covered by electricity. Their bodies were all sucked out, similar to transparent objects of the soul. The spherical body releasing electricity seems to have invisible gravity. Absorb those transparent objects. Not good. Detecting abnormal mental fluctuations. Suddenly, a rapid and urgent sound came through the earphones. Those objects that were absorbed started to merge together. Their faces showed pain and struggle. At one point, a voice sounded on all investigators' channels. All personnel be on high alert. It has been confirmed that a psychic monster has appeared near the south wall of the second satellite town. Suspected connection to the creations of the technology church. As more and more transparent objects are absorbed and integrated, a monster with 7 or 8 hands, 7 or 8 feet, and 3 faces is born right in front of you. The true master has finally appeared. Not afraid of your fierceness, but afraid of your hiding. He leaned in close to the scope on the aiming mirror and asked if Cui Tai could use special bullets. You don't need to ask for my permission to use special bullets at a critical moment. I am not asking for permission. Just reminding you. I am going to use special bullets now. Gecko's face revealed an excited expression. But be sure to watch closely. Very impressive. Bing Han's voice is now echoing in Xion's earphones. Mr. Single Unit. The mental monster has appeared. It is advised to eliminate it immediately. Xion nodded. Although not sure what kind of organization Technology Church is. But since the spiritual monster has appeared, it must be eliminated in order to alleviate the situation. 17 knew that her brother needed her help. She took the initiative to step forward and held Xion's hand. The siblings both looked at the spirit monster in front of them. Let's first get rid of this spiritual monster. Xion took his sister and jumped high directly. He moved agilely like a spider. In an instant, he firmly grasped the monster. Xion just furrowed his brow as he looked at the silently roaring peaceful face. He suddenly exerted force with both hands, tearing it open as if it were a piece of thin paper held in his hand. The monster torn in half with bare hands. It seemed to feel fear and pain as well, only to see it fleeing quickly in both directions, watching as the one monster turned into 2 by its own hands. Xion stood still for a moment, stunned. Brother, I'll take care of the one on the left. Gecko and Xion coordinated for the first time. The gecko's gun barrel had long been aimed. He pulled the trigger full of anticipation. With a bang, the all-black special bullet quickly shot out of the gun, accurately hitting the monster. Intense light suddenly bursts out. A huge electric ball, like boiling water poured into snow, melts and decomposes it. Got it. Plasma bullets developed by the Lunar Eclipse Research Institute. Very useful. Just a pity that they can't be applied for casually. Meanwhile, jumping to another spiritual monster. Xion above also saw this scene. Indeed, the Spider Classic should be used with a gun. Unfortunately, my sister doesn't like it. Although the speed of clearing oneself is slower than the gecko, he believes that the spiritual monster is also formed with the characteristics of life structure. As long as it is torn to a certain extent, it will dissipate. With this thought in mind, he grabbed the monster again. Tearing at it again, He tore off most of its body in one go. The remaining small half of the spiritual monster suddenly opened its mouth and trembled, as if emitting a cry of pain. Then it stepped on the crowd of silent people below, crying, and crawled forward quickly. Various transparent objects with different expressions were constantly brought out by it, then melted into its body. This caused its body to grow rapidly once again. Exion also looked surprised, sensing that something was wrong. Bing Han also became tense. "What's wrong, Mr. Single Unit?" Watching where the monster passed by, people fell down one after another. How come the monster keeps growing bigger? Exion suddenly discovered something. It seems it can devour the psychic power of people around it. All of you leave here immediately. Don't come close. And don't look at me in any way, as it will be dangerous. What situation led Exion to make this decision? He himself seems unable to guarantee safety against the unknown force. As the monster continued to devour and grow larger, the detector in Gecko's hand showed increasingly higher readings. Exion, upon discovering this issue, quickly rushed behind the monster, tearing towards its body. Although he tore off a piece, the monster did not turn around. Instead, it continued to quickly rush into the crowd, continuously absorbing their psychic power. More and more faces grew out. The fusion speed is extremely fast. His body is also rapidly growing in size. Exion pulls down a piece. The monster immediately absorbs more psychic power to fill in the fusion. Even many faces turned towards Exion. They displayed excited or angry expressions as they scrutinized him. Bing Han was also exceptionally surprised at this moment. If it could gain growth by fusing with the psychic power of the people below the wall, wouldn't that be incredible? She didn't dare to imagine what might happen next. Impossible. No psychic creature can fuse with other people's psychic power so quickly. It can't even be done even if the contamination level reaches grade A. But after all, this is something from the technology church. It's a bit mysterious, so it's normal. Gecko urges the information analysis team to quickly find the cause. He vaguely has a bad premonition. Bullets are still continuously shooting out of the gun barrel. Each one hit the monster accurately. Dazzling arcs quickly evaporate parts of the monster's body. Exion didn't stop either. He continued to reach out towards the monster, fiercely tearing at it. Perhaps this is the most challenging mental monster he has encountered since starting the mission. Despite the continued output of both Gecko and him working together, the monster did not weaken as a result. His body instead kept rapidly swelling up, almost within an extremely short period of time. The monster's body had already grown several times in size. This is not even its limit. It's just the beginning of the nightmare. As its body grew larger, the rate at which it absorbed increased as well. Spiritual level continues to rise. Spiritual level 300. Spiritual level 1000. Not good. The level of this spiritual monster has already exceeded 2000. The on-site team responsible for detection. Even the voices were trembling. Hearing the report on the channel, Exion also showed a hint of panic. According to 10 points of spiritual level for each ordinary person, the dense crowd under the wall, their total spiritual quantity is more than enough to exceed 10,000. Even more terrifying things are yet to come. If this monster can endlessly merge with the spirits of the people under the wall, that would at least become a B-level threat. The monster is growing too fast. Neither the speed at which Exion tears nor the Gecko continuously firing custom-made bullets can keep up with its growth rate. Both of their powers have been maximized. Looking at it now, it has expanded to be as tall as a mountain. The monster with spiritual level exceeding 4,000 still gives rise to a feeling of powerlessness in the heart. All specially made bullets have been used up, but everything is in vain. He anxiously asks if there is a solution found from Chui Tai's end. Bing Han and Chui Tai have already sent out a special alert to headquarters requesting support, but they also know it is of little use. Currently, the only way to stop this monster from growing is to isolate it from the crowd. Otherwise, even if the support from headquarters arrives, it may already be too late. This monster has not shown strong signs of attack and contamination so far, only continuous consumption. Based on Cui Tai's understanding of the technology church, she suspects that this is a manufactured monster, with a high likelihood that its ultimate goal is self-destruction. Reaching a spiritual level of 10,000, the spiritual radiation released by the spiritual monster is potent enough to kill or distort all creatures within a radius of 10 kilometers. It could even spread to the entire satellite town. So they currently only have one method. Speaking of this, Cui Tai's voice couldn't help but tremble. But she gritted her teeth and said it out loud. That is to eliminate and advance all the contaminated people under the wall. This choice made Xian's forehead ache faintly. The second satellite town is home to nearly 1 million people. They live under the polluted wall, these innocent people. He could understand the light and heavy. But thinking of directly eliminating all the people here. Xian's heart seemed to stop beating in that moment. Both the soldiers on the wall and the gecko, as well as Bing Han and Cui Tai on the channel, fell into a long silence. This silence made people feel anxious. Single unit. Headquarters want you to withdraw from the mission at this time. Bing Han's voice slowly sounded at this moment. Headquarters considered that what they were about to do next would affect Xian's emotions. After all, the priority of preventing single unit from losing control is much higher than many tasks. An invisible pressure hit Xian. His heart kept pounding. It seemed that he had made a decision. In a hoarse voice, he exclaimed, "You guys withdraw. Everyone withdraw from here." "What?" Xian replied. "Let everyone on the channel be surprised. All of you. Leave here now. The farther, the better. Do not come near me. Also, do not look at me in any way. Cameras are also not allowed, because it can be very dangerous." Although I don't understand why Xian made this suggestion, I thought about it carefully. Bing Han's side indicates that they need to report to their superiors first. Good. As soon as possible. Xian's hoarse voice rang out again. It seemed a bit difficult yet calm. Bing Han reported the current situation and progress in detail to headquarters. He also mentioned the suggestions proposed by Xian. All on-site personnel were collectively withdrawn from the mission and instructed that it is not to be viewed, approached, recorded. Report completed. Please give instructions. The report quickly spread to many people in Qingyang City. He is using power to seal off the Jingchen, who's been polluted, on Jiujiang Road. Upon hearing this, his face immediately became unusually tense. Is this proposed by a single unit? When Bing Han truthfully reported Xian's decision, the senior management of Qingyang City exploded instantly. Single unit proposed a suggestion, requiring all members on site to collectively withdraw. Not allowed to peep. Not allowed to approach. Not allowed to record. Minister Shen at the Qingyang City headquarters heard the report for the first time. He immediately clenched the walkie-talkie in his hand and roared loudly. What is this madman up to? Professor Bai, who is currently performing an autopsy on the body of Ran Qin, received a document. This is their latest information on the investigation of the explosion at the Red Moon Bright Orphanage 10 years ago. Some information can be inferred from it. Regarding the events of 10 years ago, single unit lied. Looking at those documents, Professor Bai did not reveal anything. Bing Han on the channel reiterated whether it is necessary to follow single unit's advice. Please advise. He remained silent for a moment. He set aside the documents and whispered his agreement. Jingchen over there is also making decisions based on Bing Han's report. I believe in single unit. Agreed. Minister Shen, who is still hesitating, is listening to the secretary's account. Whatever that single unit wants to do. Surely it won't be as direct as us launching it. The plan for the super heavy plasma round is even worse. The death toll is still soaring at an alarming rate. At present, there is no better choice. He gritted his teeth and reluctantly agreed. Decided to go crazy with them for once. Bing Han's voice sounded again. Headquarters approval received. All personnel on site evacuate the mission. Single unit. Be careful. After saying this, the channel was cut off. Xian took off the headset. The camera on the chest was also removed. The detectors on the body kept beeping continuously. I no longer pay attention to the current monsters. What is the current level of spiritual level breakthrough? He just forcefully smashed the detector on the ground because the sound was making him feel annoyed. Red Moon right now. The spiritual monster's figure had already become immense. 17 was still tearing at the monster with all his might. I especially want to deal with this monster myself, so as not to make my brother angry. After feeling his sister's helplessness, Xian suddenly revealed a sinister smile on his face. The gaze revealed a look that sees everything. The mood inexplicably became particularly excited. I was carving 17 monster with all my might when I seemed to feel something. I quickly turned my head to look at my brother, displaying a vigilant expression on my face. Xian also felt it from afar, the huge figure of the father at home. He paced anxiously back and forth, staring fixedly at the door. Damn it, damn it. He roared that he wanted to go out. Just as Xian was about to open the door, a graceful figure appeared behind him. Softly, she asked Xian what he intended to do. I want to deal with that monster. I also want to find the person behind all this and deal with him too. You won't stop me, will you? Hearing this, Xian's mother smiled approvingly. How could that be possible, silly child? Your thoughts are very reasonable. Of course Mom supports you. Who else do you want to deal with besides taking care of this monster? No more. Xian turned his head to look at his mother. His mother still had a smile on her face. Yes, I know you've always wanted him to come out. The him he was referring to is the father. At this moment, the father seemed a little dissatisfied. Standing by the window at home with anger, his crimson eyes stared fiercely outside. But after he comes out, the number of people to be taken care of may be more than you can imagine. For example, those people still alive on the scene. For example, all the people in Satellite Town. Feels like Mom is a bit gloating. Xian suddenly became somewhat hesitant. In your opinion, what should we do now? And Mom just asked him if he believes in his family. Xian listened quietly and fell into silence. He knew his family were not real family members. They suddenly appeared one day after the orphanage was destroyed, as if they had been with him for a long time. They all had some bad habits, sometimes even encouraging him to do bad things. They all seemed to have their own secrets, keeping them from him. They also seemed to be very powerful, while he was just an ordinary person. How can I believe in such a family? Mom's eyes seemed to see through everything. You always thought of yourself as an ordinary person. But have you noticed that you can stay alert and enter the power realm of others? You can hear cries like an ordinary person. Is it possible that your unique power user is higher than ordinary? You have been borrowing your sister's power all along. But have you ever thought about lending your own power to her? Although my sister is a bit naughty, a bit ugly, her temperament is also a little quirky, but she is still very clingy to you. You are worried that your sister will learn bad things. You have been on guard against her. But have you ever really trusted her? After listening to his mother's account, Xian also began to understand. He made a decision. I believe in you. I also believe in my sister. He raised his hand and pointed to the huge monster. He smiled at 17. Sister, haven't you always wanted a toy? How about this one? Shall I give it to you? 17 was stunned on the spot. An expression of disbelief and confusion appeared on her face. But the confused expression quickly turned into joy. She excitedly ran towards Xian. She jumped on her brother's back. Her two slender arms tightly wrapped around Xian. Mom next to them saw the siblings' happy faces and also smiled happily. At the moment of choosing to believe in her sister, the sister's power began to undergo a transformation. They quickly rushed towards the monster. The sister behind them faintly started to smile. "Thank you, brother, for giving me this big toy." At the moment when Xian charged towards the monster, the atmosphere suddenly became oppressive and dangerous. It seemed to suddenly sense a strange disturbance. All the human faces on its huge body opened their mouths at the same time. The gecko on the wall looked terrified. He felt a profound darkness beneath the night. There was a frightening power at play. It is a twisted psychic force field. The monster completely released that invisible psychic power. The surrounding searchlights shattered instantly. But that power seems to have no effect on Xian. He flew straight at the twisted psychic power field. And this time, Xian did not go to tear it. Instead, he reached out and touched the monster. In the moonlight of the red moon, the disdainful expression appeared extremely eerie. As Xian was about to borrow power from Court Goodness, his mother appeared to dissuade him. If the father were to come out at this moment, when fear descends, the extent of death would be immeasurable. Under the guidance of his mother, Xian removed the barriers in his heart and chose to believe in his family. He no longer restricts his younger sister. At this moment, his younger sister's power also got sublimated. The siblings charged straight ahead towards the monster's released psychic power. That is a twisted force field powerful enough to destroy everything. They heard the gecko speaking in a low voice about the spiritual twisted force field. Her already restless heart became tense once again. Ordinary people will immediately go crazy when enveloped by a spiritual twisted force field. As for power users, if there is a significant difference in spiritual level between them, they can also be instantaneously influenced by each other and lose control. As a gecko who is a power user, I can clearly sense that there is a huge psychic power expanding on Xian's side. I can only pray that Xian does not lose control. He does not want to deal with out-of-control teammates. The reason he agreed to recruit in the first place is that the Department of Special Circumstances said it would let him save people. They also promised that he would not be arrested for taking care of the business of the young lady. Xian touched the face of the monster with both hands. Everything he touched suddenly became disorganized and chaotic. The giant face began to contort and gradually spread, like a blob of oil dripping into water and spreading outwards. The single-unit brothers do not seem like boastful people, but Gecko still can't understand. Faced with that giant and invincible monster, how can his Spider Classic handle it? From Xian's perspective, watching his sister's actions, he finally understood. The sister is distorting this spiritual monster. This is not the power of the spiritual mutant. This is a kind of contamination. From the perspective of contamination power, this spiritual monster is in front of the sister. It's just a toy after all. One that she has always wanted. A large, moving, and living toy. The monster seems to feel panicked. The obese body extended a giant arm. It was about to slap down at his little sister. A fierce blow from a giant palm. But in 17's eyes, it was as slow as possible. With just a slight sway of the body, easily dodging it. Fine. While dodging the attacks of the psychic monster, 17 keeps twisting it. By now, it has covered almost half of the monster's body. The areas twisted by the little sister are out of control and in chaos. This also slows down its movements. The monster suddenly makes an unexpected decision. Its body forcefully elongates. The twisted part of the body. In this struggle, ripped apart by itself, the crowd below, who have not been devoured by psychic power, still quietly shed tears. Like harvested straw. The monster's speed increased again after discarding the contaminated part of its body. It continues to frantically devour the spirits of the crowd. It seems to have discovered something. The monster's forward speed suddenly stopped. It sees a woman below the crowd smiling at it. It's like a mother welcoming a guest, warmly calling it over. The monster is instantly terrified. All faces show expressions of fear. Without thinking, it quickly turns around. Just want to escape from the woman in front. When it turned around, it saw Xian and 17 standing atop the head of a giant monster. The spiritual monster beneath Xian's feet. It is the half of the body that was abandoned by it. The difference is that the monster has already twisted into a more bizarre form. Haha. This monster is so silly. Looking at this huge toy, 17 laughs very happily. She jumps to the top of another one's head, calling her brother to come and play with her. Red moon at the moment. The siblings are facing each other, each standing on a monster's head. Is it not normal for a brother to accompany his sister to play? Playful smiles appeared on both of their faces at the same time. The spirits of the monsters underfoot went wild as they collided heavily, biting and tearing at each other. Clear sense of tremor. Like an invisible bomb exploding in the air. Ran Qin outside Xinjiang City looked at the instrument in his hand. He felt something was wrong. Clearly, the predetermined spiritual level had not been reached yet, but the data started to become unstable. The red suit asked Ran Qin if he needed to use his puppet to take a look. After giving it some serious thought, he decided to take a look. But only one look. Then, he would cut off contact forever. Feels like the boss is a bit too worried. Hong Xishuang doesn't think there's any power user. He can prevent the explosion of a mental bomb. With a flick of his finger, amidst the dull crowd in the south of the city, suddenly, someone opened his eyes. He stiffly turned his head towards the direction of Xian among the silent and motionless crowd around him. At the same time, someone hiding in the dark door under the wall was secretly recording the battlefield with a camera. Another person used binoculars to observe the scene stealthily, ready to report real-time information. Even someone in a sealed room is using power to monitor the south wall. Xian had previously said not to peep. It seems that some people are still disregarding the warning and peeping. The scissors reappeared in the mother's hand. She elegantly smiled at those who were hiding in the dark and watching. A disobedient child is going to be punished. A sharp click. A crisp sound. Heard by the ears looking this way. That is the sound that can cut through all logic. These people dared to ignore Xian's warning. They hid in the distance, secretly peering at him. It doesn't matter. Mom will take action. Xian's rules cannot be violated. This is the only way to show respect to him. Disobedient children will be punished. With a snip of the scissors, Mom cut off the connection to everything here, including them. Hiding behind the camera of the hidden door, it shattered in an instant, along with his body, as if being crushed into pieces by an invisible force. The girl observing from afar with a telescope. At the sound of the scissors, she felt a chill. Subconsciously looking down, only to find that his clothes were neatly split open on both sides, just as if they had been cut in half with scissors. A thin trail of blood extended from the abdomen all the way to the top of the head. It wasn't just her clothes that were cut open. In the sealed room, the deeds witnessed through the use of power were being reported to the higher-ups. I saw a single unit fighting a spiritual monster. But it's strange. Single unit doesn't seem like just one person. Around him, there also seems to be a twisted spirit. With a click, her voice abruptly stopped. On the other end of the channel, someone was asking softly, "Go on! What is twisted?" The quiet room. Only the repeated questioning from the other end of the channel. The girl sat quietly on the sofa, her head already tilted to one side. Sensing something amiss, the man in the red suit suddenly woke up. He tugged at the strings connecting the puppets with his fingers. A look of confusion mixed with a hint of bewilderment. He found the puppets left there. They were all unreachable. It was as if the connection between them had been completely severed. Ran Qin, bewildered, calmly asked which one? Each one. The voice in the red suit sounded somewhat choked up. The big-headed boy seemed a bit puzzled after hearing it. Are you guessing whether it's because the distance is too far, so it's beyond the control range? The man in the red suit confidently replied no. A range of 30 kilometers has been tested by him several times. He didn't know if it was an illusion or not. This time when he opened his eyes in the puppet's body, he seemed to see a woman. She was smiling at him. Then don't wait any longer. Prepare to evacuate. Ran Qin quietly looked towards Qingyang City, as if contemplating something. Big Head Boy was somewhat surprised. Boss, this level of data recording may not necessarily earn us money. Ran Qin turned around and made a gesture signaling a retreat. The task of recording experimental data on spiritual pollution bombs has been declared a failure. This decision surprised Red Suit and Big Head Boy a bit. It seems that they did not expect the boss to give up a mission so easily. Ran Qin, who sees through their thoughts, turned back with a smile and asked, "Do you know why I've been able to survive for so long?" "The reason is that, even though I have power, I still keep the cautiousness of an ordinary person. When it's time to retreat, I never act out of greed." After saying that, he pressed the instrument. Under the wall in the south of the city, Xian was like a bystander. He watched as two spiritual monsters were tearing each other apart. He couldn't help but marvel at how powerful his sister was. The monster tainted by him. On the contrary, its fighting power is a bit stronger. Just at that moment, the unpolluted monster suddenly stopped moving, as if some elusive command had been transmitted from afar. The monster controlled by the sister bit at it, its unmoving body seemingly brewing an unimaginable force of terror. Not good. Xian realized it immediately. The psychic monster is about to unleash its final radiance. The psychic radiation is released. It's akin to a bomb. It affects not only the people below the wall, but also those within a radius of 10 kilometers. All people affected by this radiation will be in trouble. Xian stayed here. It was to solve this spiritual pollution bullet. He subconsciously called out for his sister. "Uh-huh. It's okay, brother." 17 comforted the nervous Xian. He immediately leaped from his shoulder and rushed straight at the monster. She stretches with all her might in the air, but her tiny body is only so big. The length of the stretch is limited as well. So she used power to disperse her body into many pieces. They scattered and floated in the air. The air was filled with the joyful laughter of her sister. "Brother, you look quickly. I have dispersed into many copies of myself." 17 stretches out his body, embraced towards the monster. The monster that was tainted by her. Under the control of the younger sister. Also tightly wrapping around the spirit monster that is about to explode. Xian just realized. His sister is going to use her own body to wrap around the monster. Powerful mental radiation surged out in an instant. Released in the embrace of his sister, but unable to spread freely around. All contained by his sister in her arms. Xian watched this scene. Suddenly, an unusual feeling of pain emerged in his heart. He knew this was a manifestation of his sister's power, but he didn't understand why. He really didn't want to see this scene. Ran Qin has already started to retreat. He kept staring at the instrument in his hand, but there were no changes in the data observed. Gazing in the direction far away, he said meaningfully, "The water in Qingyang City is very deep." However, the next second, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. He didn't know if it was an illusion. He vaguely felt it. He felt like he was being stared at by a woman. At the moment when the mental monster erupted, 17 stretched out its body to wrap around it. Like 10 kilograms of TNT explosives, psychic power was released in her arms. All the surging power that burst out was tightly held by the younger sister, preventing it from spreading to the surroundings. If an ordinary person were to be exposed to this twisted psychic power, they would definitely die instantly or go insane. Suddenly, there was a violent vibration coming from the southern wall position, with a large amount of dust rising up. Gecko turned back and froze in place. He nervously took out a detection device, revealing an incredulous expression in an instant. The power of the twisted mind is rapidly decreasing. Gecko immediately reported to Cui Tai. The mental radiation in the area of the southern wall of the second satellite town is disappearing and approaching zero. Please advise on whether to enter the scene. At that moment, similar reports were heard from all over Qingyang City. Gecko received the command above. Approved to enter the scene for inspection. He rushed over quickly. Seeing that underneath the wall was already filled with countless corpses, Xian sat on a rock. The extremely horrifying giant pit at his feet was particularly eye-catching. Looking at Xian, who seemed to be in a bad mood with his head hanging down, Gecko cautiously approached him. Just then, he picked up a tree branch from the ground and lightly poked it. "Are you okay, buddy?" Lost in thought, Xian suddenly raised his head, startling Gecko. His body involuntarily shivered with fear. Seeing that the newcomer was Gecko, Xian realized that he was still on a mission. However, it should have already been resolved. Please support the team to enter. After Xian finished speaking, he lowered his head again. Unable to resist, Gecko asked him what he was up to. So it turned out that the headphones were broken. The detector was also dropped by him. He, the user of Money Lover, is worried that headquarters will ask him to compensate. Fortunately, Gecko advised him not to. He should honestly report that it was his own fault. Then, he shouldn't have to compensate. Xian felt a little relieved at this. Gecko, with a pensive look, glanced around. "Brother, how was this big pit created?" Xian turned around and said it was caused by that spiritual monster. It suddenly erupted, like a bomb. However, Gecko's eyes were still filled with fear. He asked Xian how he managed to unleash the power of the monster, concentrating solely in this small area. Watching 17 approach with a smiling face, seeking credit, Xian truthfully said that it was his younger sister. When the spiritual monster is about to explode, splitting apart their tiny body, wrap the monster in the middle. Just need to focus the power that explodes it out together. Wrap it up. It can be solved. Xian looked up at the Gecko, answering softly, "You can't do it?" Anticipating what Xian was about to say, the Gecko extended his hand to stop him. "Brother, I understand the rules. So it must be our fault, right?" Make sure the large humanoid monster has been eliminated. The support team begins to enter the scene. Every time Xian sees the support team entering, he experiences a strange sense of security. He took out a satellite phone and called Bing Han, asking if the problems have been resolved now. At this point, Bing Han seemed much more relaxed than before. The 4 large special pollution areas that appeared in the second satellite town have all been well controlled. Xian subconsciously didn't want to see the corpses littering the ground. Even though she successfully saved more than half of the people, what about the other half who died? So is there any clue now? How did this chaos come about? Although there is a dedicated person investigating this matter, the report has not been submitted yet. From the intelligence that Bing Han currently has, this incident must be related to the technology church, the church, and the knights outside the city. In addition to the theft of paintings, they should have other objectives as well, and it is very likely that they have already completed them. For their own goals, they have caused the deaths of many people. How will headquarters deal with this matter? The follow-up measures for that knighthood order are under the responsibility of the City Defense Department. Bing Han also doesn't know what arrangements they will make. Even if the other party has left Satellite Town, there will still be professional personnel pursuing them. After all, someone has to take responsibility for those who lost their lives in this chaos. Xian listened intently and stared at the city outskirts. No matter who they are or where they escaped to, for the deaths of so many people, they will have to pay the price. Well said. But after finishing this work, you should go home early. His mother in front of him showed a delicate and charming smile. Your father is really angry now. Such a big fire. I think this time we need to consider holding a family meeting. A Gecko leaning against a car, looking at Xian with a strange look. A conversation of thanks exchanged between Bing Han and the Gecko. I don't know how long I waited. Finally, I saw him hang up the phone. Do you always talk like this every time? Xian listened but stared at him with some curiosity. Is there something wrong? Oh my god. Of course it's not right. Gecko looks like a seasoned person. Always so polite. When will she become one of us? You see, when I chat with Linda, it's more intimate. That's what it means to be one of us. Once this topic is brought up, he immerses himself in fantasies he has made up in his mind. Even a premonition about Chui Tai is aroused. Thinking that Chui Tai is going to become his own person soon. The more he talked, the more excited he got. Gue Gue respectfully leaned on Xian's shoulder. He wanted to tell Xian a secret piece of intelligence obtained from Chui Tai. The house that carried his father's anger was already worn and weary. Just as Mom said, maybe it's really necessary to consider having a family meeting. After the mission, Xian and Gecko returned to the security department and filled out the work report as usual. After this incident, Gecko became more cautious towards Xian. However, Xian could also understand. After all, many people must be curious about how a spider classic power deals with spiritual monsters. At this moment, 17 suddenly appeared by his side. Brother, when do you plan to come back home? That old monster is throwing a tantrum. I dare not go back now. Xian couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect my younger sister to be afraid sometimes. He asked 17 to wait for a moment. He then reached out and grabbed a handful of candy. Little sister was a big help this time. She deserves a reward. 17's eyes lit up when she saw her brother's pocket filled with candy. After finishing supper, Xian greeted Gecko. He was going home for a visit today, since he had promised his mom to hold a family meeting. Gecko suddenly became interested and wanted to go with Xian as well. He had been wanting to visit Xian's house. Xian looked at Gecko with pity. What's wrong with being alive? This statement immediately scared Gecko, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Xian looked at his stiff expression and then gave an apologetic smile, signaling that it was just a joke. However, this time we will not invite him to our house first. Xian felt that this meeting was very important. Upon Gecko's notification, Xian boarded the vehicle below the security department. He asked the driver to take him home. 17 lay beside Xian, watching the places hidden in the darkness. Brother, someone is following us. Although I understand their curiosity and vigilance towards themselves, we have to go home for a family meeting soon. If we cross the line, it may anger our father who is already in a bad mood. After giving it some thought, Xian still decided to give Jing Chen a call. Colonel Chen, things here in Satellite Town have been mostly taken care of. I plan to return home for a while. However, there are many people following me now. I don't like being watched like this. Jing Chen, lying on the operating table, is still so capable. Instantly understood the reason behind it. So promised her that this side would arrange things well for Xian. Not long after, those who were monitoring him turned and left one after another, disappearing into the darkness. Jing Chen called again. She informed Xian that she had ordered them all to withdraw. Xian heard her talking about intestines or something on the other end of the phone. Xian subconsciously asked her what she was doing. Jing Chen then said she was in the middle of surgery. He sustained some injuries when he was attacked by Ran Qin earlier. Just now, he finally had time to deal with it. During the operation, he was still able to make a call to himself. Xian couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He hurriedly asked, "Is everything okay, Jing Chen?" "It's nothing." Jing Chen didn't seem to care at all. He just mentioned that a cut was made in his abdomen, injuring his internal organs. It's nothing that can't be fixed with some stitches. She has already hypnotized herself with power. She won't feel any pain. Xian then stopped disturbing her and let her focus on the surgery. He thought about the leader performing the surgery. Should he buy some fruits to send over? The car quickly drove near the old building. Xian got off the car slowly. At the moment he got off, the driver received orders from above to stop monitoring the single unit. Jing Chun from the Special Operations team guaranteed it. However, the driver was puzzled. Wasn't the current threat level of single unit already at level A? After a brief silence on the earpiece, the driver was told the truth. Just now, there was a report that during single unit's mission to clear the spirit monsters, some people investigating him had already paid a price, including a senior investigator, an A-level elite agent, and even a power user. The causes of death are all unknown. For your safety considerations, all monitoring of single unit must be stopped immediately. The driver subconsciously looked back at the old building. Goosebumps covered his body all at once. He stepped on the gas pedal and accelerated away from this area. Xian walked in the silent corridor, feeling a different kind of oppression. 17, who followed behind, was singing a song cheerfully. "Sister, please don't sing anymore." Xian couldn't help but stop in their tracks. "Uh-huh. Brother, don't you like it?" "It's not a matter of liking or not liking. You're just seriously off-key." I arrived at 401. In this cold and empty old building. Only the lights at home were on. 17 was not singing at this time. Leaned on his brother's back. Xian knew that his little sister didn't want to go into the house at this time. This also indicated that the father must be very angry. He gently comforted his sister with a word. Quietly walked to the door of the room. Then slowly pushed open the door. Just as he entered the house, what came into view was a mess. Like it had been through a war. Seeing Xian arrive, the father's huge roar stimulated the nerves of everyone in the room. Trash. They're all trash. Trash. They're all trash. A group deserving to be used. Trash that deserves to be harmed and killed. The father, filled with anger, slammed heavily on the table. The whole old building seemed to tremble faintly along with it. The mother on the side was on the phone with the mysterious Miss Chen. "Tell her not to worry. It's just a few robbers coming into the city. The situation has been resolved." 17, who was crouched behind Xian, though afraid, still cautiously peeked out towards his father and let out a low growl. "You said? Are you useless? You ran outside all night, but you still let those people get away." Xian just looked silently at his father. Okay. I've been angry all day already. The child has already come back." The mom who hung up the phone walked over lightly. "Now everyone is here. Shouldn't we also have a family meeting now?" The anger on the father's face did not dissipate. Xian held his sister, sitting opposite his mother next to his father. Mother's words make sense. We really should have a good talk now. Regarding this incident, Xian didn't think he did anything wrong. Since he's receiving this salary, he should help people solve problems. Moreover, Jing Chen helped him protect the people at the orphanage. So of course, he should also help protect the people in Satellite Town for Jing Chen. Father listened to these words. His eyes were filled with anger, and it seemed like flames were about to erupt from them. What job? They are just using you. You have done so much for them, yet their first reaction is to be wary of you, to track you. So you should make them all die. Otherwise, everyone in this family will be killed by you. Everyone is dead. Who will pay the children's wages? An empty city. Will it be interesting? Mother's voice is still so gentle and sensible. To be rational. We did something that others couldn't do. People are afraid of power. Not everyone is as homebound as you. A more lively world is still better. After talking about father, mother's gaze fell on Xian. Of course, mom is a very rational person. Speaking frankly, you did show a bit of weakness. When those people escaped, you chose to save lives first. Mom can understand. But now, what about it? Father also stared tightly at Xian. If you don't want to be killed by others, then you have to strike first before they harm you. You need to make them understand. They shouldn't provoke you. Brother is right. 17 suddenly spoke up, making a fierce expression towards father. Dead girl. You don't understand anything at all." The sister's defiance made father angry again. It was done by the brother. That's right. Faced with the abnormally tall figure of the father, 17 was a little scared, but still muttered softly. As the father approached little by little, the huge shadow almost engulfed everyone. "Don't scare your younger sister." Exian, who had been quiet all along, finally spoke. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became somewhat delicate. Mother tenderly touched 17. "Your brother is certainly not wrong. He did the right thing. Now, what we need to discuss is what happens next. Those people have already done something bad. They snatched away that painting. Although others believe they did it for the painting, is it really that simple? If they were just after the painting, why did the reformed individuals come looking for you? And why was the bomb detonated specifically in the southern part of the city?" Mom suddenly smiled, "And outside the city seems to be very fun. We have never been out of the city." Hearing this, my sister's eyes suddenly lit up as well. "You all make sense." Exian, sitting on the sofa, seemed lost in thought. A strange smile appeared on his face. "Do you agree this time?" Seeing Exian nod slightly, a hint of excitement and even anticipation appeared on father's angry face. Exian's voice seemed to echo throughout the entire old building. He said, "I had already made up my mind to come find you before returning home this time. I just wanted to confirm whether you would support me or not." Mom is very satisfied with the result of this meeting. It's decided so happily. Let's go find them. Exian also smiled in agreement. He really enjoys communicating and achieving mutual results in this friendly and pleasant way. Jing-chun, who had just undergone surgery, couldn't rest and went straight to Professor Bai's research institute. Based on the testimonies of the father-daughter pair Su, she had reason to be suspicious. Those power users outside the wall could be possible. They had long been searching for that painting in the city. Until Xiaosu left main city, revealing that painting. They finally got the opportunity to take action. Actually, the situation is already very clear. Professor Bai gestured for Jing Chen to sit down. The one named Ran Qin should be a very powerful power user. This person is very bold and cautious. He also has a good understanding of the defense work in Satellite Town. From the extent of his use of power, Professor Bai judged that Ran Qin has at least reached the end of the first stage. The possibility of the second stage cannot be ruled out. Jing Chen frowned tightly after hearing this. If it's just a bandit, then it's okay. If it's the technology church, Professor Bai doesn't think so. It's not in the style of the technology church to only use a mental bomb. Of course, it's also possible that they were instructed by the technology church to observe the experiment data of the bomb. If that bomb really explodes, the consequences will definitely be severe. It's all thanks to single unit administration's side. He even arranged for someone to monitor him. On Professor Bai's side, it is checked through dissecting sample tests, identifying the mental reconditioning responsible for the attack on Jing Chen and the others. It was from the same puppet classic power user. It can be seen that the members of the Knights have long been in contact with the single unit. Professor Bai took out a file and handed it to Jing Chen. This is the information they have gathered so far on the investigation of the explosion at the Red Moon Orphanage. 20 years ago, there were disagreements in the early days of the establishment of the Lunar Eclipse Research Institute. This led to a laboratory director in the Research Institute taking some important resources and experimental items with them when they left. For many years afterward, the Research Institute had been searching for him. Many people know about this incident. The event is codenamed Escape from the Laboratory. There is reason to suspect this is also one of the objectives of the Knights Templar, but there is too little information at hand to prove anything. Indeed, some things seem to have been deliberately covered up. They are currently just speculating. If the orphanage is really related to the escaped laboratory, then there should be at least one person who knows the truth about this now. Jing Chen suddenly picked up his head. The first person who came to mind was Xiaoluzheng. Professor Ba was extremely concerned about the orphanage. He specifically assigned the entire task to be handled by Jing Chen. No one else could put his mind at ease. Jing Chen understood Professor Bai's intention. She will visit the orphanage and have a talk with Xiaoluzheng. Red Moon is present. Little Lu, sitting in a wheelchair, quietly looks out the window, placing the rusty gun on her lap. To investigate the escaped laboratory incident, Jing Chen arrived at the new relocation site of the orphanage. Fortunately, they were moved here for protection initially, ensuring they were not affected during the citywide riot. She showed her identity to the elderly gatekeeper, who was reading the newspaper, indicating that she was here to see the former principal. However, the elderly gatekeeper, as he was, used the reason that class was not yet over to ask Jing Chen to wait for a while, until the bell for the end of class rang. Following the playful laughter of the children, I saw little Lu being surrounded and coming out in a wheelchair. Hello. My name is Jing Chen. I am Xian's colleague. Little Lu looked up at Jing Chen. A surprised expression appeared on her face. Are you the person who gave him so much money? Jing Chen just smiled lightly. He didn't expect that little Lu's focus would be here. The work he did deserves this level of compensation. Teacher Little Lu seemed a bit nervous. When asked about the reason for her visit this time, Jing Chen calmly said that he wanted to understand some past events. The two of them arrived at an office. Looking at the child's workbook, Jing Chen couldn't help but smile. He wants to become a scientist when he grows up. He wants to invent a chicken with 10 legs just so people can eat chicken legs every day. Although the writing is childish, you can tell that the children here are very determined. When you and Xian were growing up, you must have grown up in an orphanage, right? Faced with Jing Chen's question, little Lu nodded. He left when he was about 13 years old. But he often comes back to help me. This person is so silly. He can't bring himself to buy anything. But he always brings his salary to me. Without him, this orphanage would have closed long ago. We might have starved to death. Xian's character is still widely recognized as good. However, what she wants to know is about what happened at the orphanage back then. Little Lu seems to have been avoiding this question. She doesn't want to give a direct answer. Jing Chen also stopped beating around the bush. Get straight to the point. What was Xian like at that time? And when the explosion happened back then, what exactly happened between you and Xian? Not finished yet. Little Lu suddenly pulled out a pistol from under the blanket covering his feet. I don't know what you want to ask. I know nothing about what happened back then. Little Lu aimed at his own chin. Tears welled up in his eyes. The current tranquility is what he deserves. You can't expect to deceive me. I will not allow you to harm him. See little Lu being forced to die. Jing Chen sighed. Although she could tell at a glance that the gun had not been maintained. It couldn't be opened. But today's goal has been achieved. Jing Chen left her phone number. Her ultimate goal is to ensure Xian's safety. And little Lu happened to inform Jing Chen in this manner. Xian is a person worthy of her trust even at the cost of her life. Little Lu treasures this peaceful life. What Jing Chen wants to do is exactly to protect this kind of life. As they are leaving, Jing Chen reminds little Lu to pay the water and electricity bills. She sees the notice posted downstairs. Out of respect for Xian, I can help cover up the issue of you hiding the firearms. But the water and electricity bills, as well as the rent, still need to be paid by yourselves. To avoid causing panic. The official statement to the public about the causes of this chaos. Someone violated rules by collecting polluted mushrooms in the wilderness and allowed a large number of toxic mushrooms to flow into the market, ultimately leading to a food poisoning incident. Now the administration has provided free centralized treatment for the poisoned public. Severe punishment and trial will be conducted for those involved in the incident. Can it still be like this? This operation surprised Xian. He asked Bing Han if there was any news about the power users who took away the stolen paintings and escaped to the outskirts of the city. Headquarters has dispatched a special task force for tracking. But the other party's anti-tracking measures are extremely professional. The City Defense Department has offered a high reward for the wanted Ran Qing. Bing Han's initial estimate is that it should be over 3 million. 3 million. Xian was instantly shocked. His inner thoughts were unclear. Bing Han detailed the task allowance and remuneration to Xian. But before finishing, he was interrupted by Xian. He is now anxious about another matter. To avoid any omissions in the accounts, he feels it would be better to wait until later when there is some free time to carefully cross-check the calculations together. You just said it. It's not easy for the City Defense Department to track those people. But they have committed so many crimes in this city. They cannot be let off easily. So I want to submit an application to headquarters. Go on a trip. At this time, in the Qingyang City's Senior Administrative Hall, a meeting is being held to discuss the application that Xian just submitted. In this incident, Xian revealed many secrets that were previously unknown. Minister Shen suspects that Xian suddenly applying to leave the city at this time must have some issues, and even suspects that he is trying to escape.